When we look at the data center standards, all of these standards acknowledge right at their start, 70% of data center outages are caused by human errors. Global Data Center Engineering is a full-service, end-to-end data center consultancy. We provide design, greenfield, brownfield. We do optimizations. If a data center isn't performing to the extent that is expected, we oftentimes get brought in to examine deeper why that actually happens. So this is an interesting part because what I'm trying to do is bring awareness to the data center world that the data center industry is fundamentally where the airline industry was in 1970. And what I mean by that is, in 1970 there was a big move to bring all the commercial engines to jets or turboprops, which are considered to be a much more reliable source of power. And with that, the expectation was all these previous air crashes were the result of mechanical failures. But between 1970 and 1980, they sort of found the numbers didn't really change. The number of crashes that involved fatalities and injuries continued to be consistent with the level of flight that was taking place. And so the data center industry, I think, is very much in the same position. When we look at the data center standards, all of these standards acknowledge right at their start, 70% of data center outages are caused by human errors. So what that tells us is exactly that point. We've gone as far as we can with redundancy and with improvements in terms of the reliability of components. So what I want to do is start really addressing this 70% and stop just talking about it. We've identified that there's at least 7 different causes of human error within human error. And because we have these 7 different causes, each one needs a different way to address it. For instance, some things are involuntary. How many times we dropped our pencil or our mobile phone or something, which just a clumsy act. We lose control of it. It's not that we meant to drop it, but it happens. The same thing happens in certain environments, and that can be very dangerous. Each one needs a different level of attention in order to determine the intervention strategies that we need in order to rectify that. We can't get rid of human error. And in fact, one of the issues that we want to talk about is error reduction is not error management. And a lot of the things that I am seeing being shown as error management in the industry at the moment are really more about error reduction. So we're at that stage at an infancy right now. And one of the things that I think is particularly interesting is, we're using a CFD modeling tool, and they have just stepped into the virtual reality world. So we can now actually stand inside these models and see them in ways that we really couldn't experience them before. Now this is a baby step. It's the forerunner to what I want to see really happen in the industry. Again, going back to the aviation industry, we started looking at why were they so successful? When they started to really focus on these issues, what makes them so successful? One of the things is they have flight simulators. Pilots spend hundreds of hours training in these things before they ever get into the planes to fly them on their own. No one gets electrocuted, nobody breaks the data center, and some of these things are very timely, right? So they happen because they're under time pressures, people panic and they make mistakes. So if we can simulate these things and get people used to drilling them in a way that's exactly the way that they would in that environment at a low-cost way. The difference between components, we generally measure their failures in terms of tens or hundreds of thousands of hours. But humans actually make mistakes on average every 4 minutes. I'm probably making a mistake right now. What that results in is you have these really big gaps between mechanical failures, and when a mechanical failure dies where we have this redundancy in place, then it tends to cover it. But human errors, because we know they'll happen on average every 4 minutes, we don't know what error they will make, and we don't know how that will cascade. And generally they're inconsequential, but sometimes things just happen at all the wrong time. All the sort of things line up in order to create this cascading series of events that winds up in something catastrophic.